Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to what very well might be the last Say Report. I went upstairs to refreshen my water in order to deliver my cooled vocal cords to you, and saw the president rushed off the stage. Luckily, he came back and said there was just a shooting outside the White House. It's all taken care of. So,
oh man.
I guess it is nice to know that they are on top of that. That, like, if there is something going on in the world, the Secret Service, even though I personally don't have much faith in our commander-in-chief, it's good to know that I don't know the word that I want to use here, Sejim. Inability to perform has not trickled down to the other portions of our, federal government.
Well, this is opening up a can of worms.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. Well, what a weird energy to start the show on.
It was a kind of weird energy to start the show. So anyway, welcome to the Say Report. I'm your host, Devon Decker. He's my host companion, Sejin Sarawik, which I just want to remind that we're on the same level. We're like Regis and Kathy Lee. I don't know. Am I Regis? Regis passed away. I don't think we ever addressed that. That was sad.
Yeah, that was very sad. He was a voice of a generation. Did you meet him? No. Who was the host when you did Millionaire?
The host when I did Millionaire was Chris Hansen. Is that his name? The guy who does Bachelor.
Might be Chris Hansen. Devon, take a seat.
Oh no, that's the Dateline guy, right? Where you're a child molester and you didn't know it.
Well, you probably knew it. It's how you got there. But
what's the Bachelor host's name?
Chris O'Donnell. That's what I want.
No, I wish it were Chris O'Donnell. I mean, he is not LL Cool J. Let's just say LL Cool J. Don't call it a comeback because he's been here for years. He's the kind of guy who can host shows and act on NCIS Los Angeles. I don't think that Chris O'Donnell has that range. I'm just going to say that. I love Chris O'Donnell, but...
I love Chris O'Donnell too, but he is not the first person I think of when you say the word charisma, shall we say. It's one of my biggest issues with him as Boy Wonder in the Batman movies.
I kind of dug that, though, because we had seen Angsty Robbins up to that point. Like, it wasn't just Dick Grayson. Like, we saw Dick Grayson evolve into Nightwing by the time Batman Forever came out and we were all kissed from the rose on the gray. Ooh. But, I guess I feel like Chris O'Donnell was put in that role so that had the series continued, had the 1989 Batman series continued, he could have evolved into Nightwing.
Or Dick Grayson Batman really is probably where they probably would have gone with him, right? They would never have a Nightwing movie in the 90s. It would have been Batman, but Dick Grayson, which happened in the 90s, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's where I see the shift from Marlon Wayans as Robin, who would have been that goofy Burt Ward-esque Robin. I could totally see Marlon Wayans saying, like, leaping lizards, Batman. I don't know why he has that accent. I think it's impossible to say leaping lizards. It's probably better than you attempting a different
accent for him, so I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I don't think it's possible to say leaping lizards without that accent. Of course, in so declaring that, I've disproven that theory. Yes. Hey. So weird energy. But yeah, it was not Regis. In fact, it was one of these weird moments where Regis Philbin's daughter, JJ Philbin, she does a lot of TV production, and she was a producer on Single Parents, R.I.P. Single Parents, which real shame because it ended on a huge cliffhanger that I am disappointed will not be resolved ever.
Except in your own fan fiction, Devon.
I mean, fan fiction. Adam Brody chokes on a Ratso's chicken nugget, and Angie and Will get together and have a million babies, and Poppy and Douglas reconcile. And I don't know what I want from Miggy. He was just sort of there. I love Miggy. He was a great character, but they didn't really know what to do with him.
I feel like you were talking about a show from an alien planet right now.
Chris Harrison? Chris Harrison is the host of The Bachelor. That's who I had as my host when I did Millionaire. But bringing it all together. You've never watched Single Parents? It's on Hulu.
No, I've not. I've not watched Single Parents, but I'm gonna go off. I'm gonna spend the rest of my life with the image in my head of what you just described. And as far as I'm concerned, Miggy is played by a puppet.
As far as I'm pretty sure he is a puppet. I think it's just a million little rats controlling a man suit made of I don't know what's happening. But anyway, J.J. Philbin was one of the producers on that show. So in the season, not the season finale, an episode that would have made a pretty solid season finale, episode 19 of season 2, they all recount the stories of when the children were born and where they were and how it happened in order to help Poppy's ex-husband's new wife get through her labor because Ron was nowhere to be found. And, you know, these people, they're like a village because it takes a village. That's what they say in Single Parents.
I'm learning so much about this show that I had no idea even existed 10 minutes ago.
Yeah. So Will's storyline was that he was covering a storm, and then he showed up right there and was able to sing like 525,600 minutes from Rent. Seasons of Love is the name of that song. And then like just caught his daughter. So obviously that's a lie, right? There's never like the baby just dropped out and I caught it. And the reason that he was lying is because at the hospital he had seen Regis Philbin and was like trying to meet him. So he missed the birth of his daughter. And then Origins, that's why he never wants to not be there for her. And he's kind of a doting father, is because he missed her birth. He doesn't want to miss anything else. Because every character needs an origin.
Oh man, because as audience members we demand motivation from our sitcom characters nowadays.
It's
we
not
can't
just
ever let
the fact
anything
that
just be.
You're a single father and want to make sure that your daughter has a good childhood where you're there and present. No. Mm-hmm. It's because Regis Philbin distracted you on the day of her birth.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a good thing that the show was canceled, as I say it. However, tying it all together, when he met Regis Philbin, my thought, which is not a normal thought, it's a completely off-base, insane thing for a person to think while watching a TV show where a character meets Regis Philbin is, that's weird. Why haven't I met Regis Philbin?
The guy's everywhere. What am I doing with my life?
Like I've met Maury Povich, right? I don't even live in New York and I've met Maury Povich. That's like the thing. Like everybody's met Maury Povich in New York. That's just a real thing. I've been on the Maury stage, and then I'm thinking like, but I never met Regis Philbin. And then it's like, yeah, normal people don't think the way you're thinking right now, Devon.
Let's name all the other people we haven't met, shall we?
All right. Do you want to go alphabetical, autobiographical? Geographic, chronological.
Geographic. Oh man!
All right, do you want to go east to west or west to east?
Oh man!
Stephen King.
That's a weird one to have not met in your area of the country.
Right,
to
just
be
a
entirely
little bit.
honest.
Yeah. That's as far as I'm going to go with this game.
Stephen King will be there.
Yeah. So that's. I don't know what got me. Oh, Regis passed away, and we have weird energy right now. You know why? I had a plan for the start of this episode before everything was taken care of with the shooting outside the White House.
Do it, bud. Let's do it.
And let's
just do that thing that you had planned. Come on, let's go into it.
Sari, RIto. That was it. I was just gonna sing Que Sera Sera, but about the quesarito, because Taco Bell is discontinuing, he said with air quotes, the quesarito in 3 days from this recording.
Okay. First of all, we definitely need to talk about this, and I'm so glad you brought it to my attention. Secondly, we did not give enough due to what you wanted this opening to be. I really I am ready to stop the show and restart, man. This is.
We're not. Sejin, there's only one type of mood I'm ever going to be in to do what I just did on Single Parents. Mm-hmm. I can't lose it. I can't lose it. It can't become a lost part of the ephemera of the Say Report. That has to stay there. And I'm
Yep.
sorry. Also, we talked about Making History. Leighton Meester from Making History, sort of the breakout character of that show. She plays Angie in Single Parents, which is why I watch. Also, if anyone out there is having, withdrawal because New Girl ended, 3 years ago at this point?
Yeah.
Single Parents is New Girl, but if everybody had children, and Jess was the man, played by the guy who took over for King George in Hamilton. Taron Killam, who's married to Colby Smulders, who I just love Colby Smulders. And then that's it. Then there's my
Hey,
show.
Regis Philbin was on a fantastic episode of How I Met Your Mother. See how we brought that around?
Yeah, look at that. We can do it. Regis Philbin is like a real life.
I do legitimately love the sandwich episode of that show.
The hamburger episode, right?
A hamburger. That's what it is. Yeah.
But yes, so the quesarito is apparently no more. But again, huge air quotes. And you said that you had something to say on this, so
no. I'm curious to know what you mean by the air quotes, because is it because basically everything at Taco Bell can be secret menued if you just walk up to them and just ask them to do certain things? Because you know the joke about how Mexican food is just a bunch of different of the same ingredients, just all put together in different ways. That is no more true than at Taco Bell. So you can basically make any other item on the menu if you walk up and start with a taco and then just make alterations to it.
So I'll have a taco, no shell, no meat, no cheese, and then I want a hamburger instead.
Well, that's not on the menu at Taco Bell, is it?
They could do it though, right? I don't know. It's a Mexican pizza, basically. No, the reason why I say it's discontinued in air quotes is because they announced that they were getting rid of a bunch of items from the menu. Were you there when the internet collectively lost its mind over the fact that Taco Bell was discontinuing some items?
I wasn't there when the president was almost shot today, but I was there when Taco Bell announced how it was going to remove the quesarito.
All right, I don't think the president was almost shot. There was a shooting outside of the White House. That's a big
they
distinction.
didn't sneak him away for no fucking reason. Clearly, they were like, "There's a shooting nearby." That's definitely.
All right, I just don't want to get sued by the White House for slander or libel.
If he was going to sue us for anything, it would be something we never did in the first place.
That's
so we're
a very good point, right? But he has done. He's just going to pin it on the Save report. But so the internet lost its mind because they were discontinuing things. Amongst them, the quesarito, all potato menu items are going to be gone from the menu.
Oh, that's actually a shame. Like their potato tacos, and burritos that you get, like the dollar menu ones, were actually super good.
Yeah, no, I've made sure that I've enjoyed all of them, and I'm disappointed. I never appreciated the loaded potato griller until it was gone, is what I will tell my children someday. Or at least your children, right? Weird Uncle Devon. When they come visit me in the asylum.
So is there meanwhile, you're like a Batman villain, and this is Arkham Asylum.
Yeah, of course.
But did they announce replacements for this, or are they going to go fancy small menu? Is that the plan? What is the game here?
Okay, so the original thing is they got rid of all the fancy small menu. They got rid of the power burrito, and they had a all black bean burrito that was fire. Literally one of the best things I've ever put in my body from a Taco Bell. That distinction is still required.
That distinction is important. Yes.
But yeah, so it's one of those situations where they already cut off some of those menu items that were heart healthy and health conscious because they flat out weren't selling. I believe the reason why they're getting rid of these menu items, first of all, the other things they're getting rid of anything that has Fritos on the menu. And they're also kind of getting rid of stuff that includes the nacho cheese sauce, which weird. I can't imagine that they're going to stop using the nacho cheese sauce at Taco Bell. But it's just a through line that I've noticed. My guess is they don't want to order any more potatoes. The potato rations have been sent over to KFC because the new KFC fries are legitimately fire. You take the 11 herbs and spices that they put on the chicken, you put it on a French fry, great success.
Chicken salt grease. I love it.
Chicken salt grease. In fact, I'm surprised that they haven't created a sort of KFC poutine option where it's just a famous bowl. Instead of mashed potatoes, French fries, no sweet corn. Like that's what I'm waiting for.
Fuck that. I eat it with the sweet corn on it. But yes, I agree. I'm
No, I
surprised
think
that has not come out yet.
I feel like that's how they would market it. I feel like they would just get rid of the sweet corn if they were going to do something like that. It's basically disco fries, but with chicken instead of bacon.
Got to be real careful right now with bringing anything down from the north though, because like there's a lot of their fan base, audience. I don't know the right word for it. Consumer base is the right word for
consumer
it.
Base works.
That probably would, no matter how much they think it would be an amazing thing to put in their mouth, would still not buy it if it was Canadian at this point in time. We live at a weird point in history.
That is a very good point. It's just one of those situations where I want to do that, but unfortunately KFC is not Taco Bell. So you go in there and you're like, I'll have a famous bowl, no sweet corn, substitute French fries for mashed potatoes. They just stare vacantly at you until one of you speaks again. And don't ask me how I know that, but I know that. And it's just one of those things. So I feel like they just want to get rid of potatoes as an option on the menu. I feel like the Frito contract probably ran out, which is why all Fritos items are going to be removed from the menu. Plus, they kind of came up with those red strips that are just Fritos but made of tortilla instead of corn. So they're
Aren't
probably
those wait, are those not the fire Cheetos Flamin' Hot Cheetos things, or are those a separate item?
Those are a separate item.
Okay.
Yeah, and actually, those were KFC. The Flamin' Hot Cheetos chicken sandwich was a KFC item.
You're right.
Fast
totally
food.
Right.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where they did Doritos Locos Tacos, and those slowly got discontinued over the last year and a half. So I think that whatever the brand deal that they had with Frito-Lay's has just expired, and also they found a much cheaper alternative in the red tortilla strips. So you don't taste Frito whenever you have those. It's just it's like a chip in there. That's fun, right? Everybody loves chips and things.
It's more about the nostalgia factor for Southerners and the idea of Frito pie. That's really where that comes from. It's not about the idea of hey, Fritos is the only thing that we can put in this that will get this effect. It's more about the idea of if we put Fritos in this, there's a bunch of people that grew up eating Frito pie that are suddenly gonna feel like I will spend money on that.
And that exact thing is why I feel they've just lost that marketing, because now Sonic has actual factual Frito branded items on their menu.
Yeah. So, just for anybody keeping score, though, this conversation is hilarious when you take a further step back and realize that all of this, including, I believe, Taco Bell, I may be wrong about this, but all of this is owned by Yum Brands, isn't it? Isn't this all one company basically fighting with itself right now?
No, I don't think that it's fighting with themselves. I think that they've reallocated particular funds to KFC from Taco Bell. But yes, it is all Yum Brands.
But I mean, the narrative that the Frito-Lay contracts have run out is ridiculous, because at the end of the day, it's one hand paying the other. It's just this idea that they need to create an idea of a sense of scarcity, a sense of rarity.
Yeah,
in their items.
I don't know if it's specifically what you're discussing, like the McRib effect. Yeah. I believe it's more the fact that rather than pay themselves, as you said, they could probably get more money from something like Sonic in order to have that branded item. And then once Sonic has something, they can have money coming in rather than essentially laundering their own money by passing it through, the way that books are cooked all the time in corporate America.
For sure.
So those two things, I think that's why Fritos are gone. I think that's why potato stuff is gone. I don't know about the nacho sauce, but it's also the regular nachos that are just nacho chip, sauce, nacho cheese. Those are going off the menu.
Have we grown beyond the sense of the age of synergy? Is that what's happening here? Is that it's no longer a cross-platform brand, right? What's the 30 Rock joke? The idea of the the third heat type thing. The idea isn't we own all of these things, why not bring them all together? Because we own these things and people want that in their life. They want that synergy across all of their life. But we've now we've moved on to a new phase, a post synergy world of no, consumers want their shit to be everywhere but one place. Like, I don't want to go to Walmart and get everything, but I want to know that I can get everything everywhere. like basically people don't know what the fuck they want. So let's just kind of do the shotgun blast effect and just be everywhere for them.
Honestly, I don't doubt that. Because you look at something like Amazon, which has become, if it were John Lennon, he'd say bigger than Christ. And then suddenly everyone would hate Amazon. But Jeff Bezos is smarter than that. But there is this effect that is trickling down probably through these focus groups that people don't want to patronize companies that seem all-encompassing because that all-encompassing represents evil to them. I also feel like the beauty of synergy is two things working hand in hand. And the way that we took that in corporate America was more of an incestuous relationship where one big corporation owns all of these brands. So we will give the appearance of like Kraft and I don't know anything else. Well, Kraft is the parent company, but like Yum Brands, and have Taco Bell pair up with Doritos, even though they're still owned by the same mega corporation. People are like, oh, there's two things I like, and they go great together. But now they want to branch out. Like, because Yum Brands doesn't have anything to do with Sonic, but they did sell out the actual contract and marketing for them to start calling their chili pie a Fritos pie.
Yeah. Well, it gets even more devious when they're not being as upfront about it. And you see this more in other forms of entertainment, like the music industry or movie industry, where you'll go to an independent film and you're thinking, like, there are many people out there that feel like they want to support independent artists more than going to the large cinemas, the large artists. They want to support local theater and things like that. But what they don't realize is that like that independent movie was put out by some like second or third arm from like Sony Studios, which is like in bed with Disney. And then like you go all the way up to the top and you realize, nope, everything's just owned by like 3 people, right? So like it can get a lot more like it can get a lot more insidious than just, hey, for your Fritos pie, you got to go to Sonic now, right? So like it's just this is also being used for evil, I guess, is what I want to say.
Well, I mean, corporations are inherently evil. I think if you're over the age of, let's say, 13 and don't know that, like, you're not paying attention. And even then, like, 13 is just an arbitrary number that I grabbed out of the air. Mm-hmm. Like, everything that corporations do are in the pursuit of getting money from you, which is why big air quotes around discontinued, because I believe the reason that they're discontinuing the quesarito is so that they can speed up drive-through times. It's no surprise that in the post-COVID-19 world, drive-throughs have become a new normal. We no longer look down our nose at stopping and getting food from a drive-thru because you're supporting the economy and you're being safe about it. So you have these people who are ordering things like the quesarito, and because you have to make the quesadilla and then make the burrito, that's going to slow down drive-through times. And if you're the type of person who, like, I can wait in a drive-through for 5 minutes and that's fine, and then you suddenly cross that threshold into a 6-minute wait, you're going to stop going to Taco Bell. That's just the nature of the human mind and how we react to things.
Mm-hmm.
Which is strange. So they're trying to do anything that they can to, speed up the drive-through process, which is also why they're getting rid of the potato stuff. As much as I think it's a supply issue, I also know that if you order a loaded potato griller, it takes more time than if you order a soft taco. Just because,
not least of which because they probably have 6 soft tacos always at the ready, whereas those potato grillers probably have to be made fresh.
Right. So it all boils down to that. But then, talking about the evils of corporations, they saw that people lost their collective minds in the middle of a pandemic, like in the middle of there being protests about police brutality. People decided that what they were going to get up in arms about was that Taco Bell was getting rid of the quesarito. And that's what Taco Bell wants to see. Taco Bell wants to see that brand loyalty, and it allows them to implement what they've gone and implemented, which is if you order in advance using the Taco Bell app, you can still get the quesarito. So that speeds up the delivery, right? Because it's being made separate from the drive-through cook queue, right?
Right.
It's being made as soon as the order is placed or as soon as the person arrives to pick it up, but it's separate from the drive-through orders.
Right.
Also, it gets you downloading their app, which gets them collecting your information, which then they sell to their other brands in order to target marketing towards you, is disgusting. It is McRib effect taken to the next logical, sinister level.
Yeah. Yeah, man. This is it. We've moved past brands giving a fuck of giving the appearance that they care about you. I think that's what this is. Like, that's the next step after Synergy, because Synergy is fantastic because it's a company trying to get every penny they can out of you while trying to pretend like they're just giving you what you want. This is them still trying to get every penny they can out of you while at the same time admitting that they don't give two shits about you as a consumer.
I mean, you talk about there's no better representation of that than a meme I saw going around on social media this weekend, which was advertisements in March. It's like, please be safe. We want you to take care of your families. We're taking care of our staff. And then adverts in August being like, you might as well catch it at Burger King. Like they've changed their whole marketing approach.
Yeah, exactly. They've completely flipped the switch on like whether or not they wanted to pretend like they cared about us, and they realized they don't even have to pretend anymore.
Yeah, they've already got us in their pockets, and it's all about shaking it so that we know, oh, we need to get our Whoppers. We need to get our quesaritos on the app. It's crazy. It's just a crazy thing. And it's something that I have been thinking about a lot since I saw the world lose its mind over a fast food item, and then how the fast food company decided to, like, capitalize on that. And regardless of all that I said this morning, I got up. I hadn't eaten fast food for a month. I went to Taco Bell. I got 3 quesaritos, and I intend to have one each day. Until they're gone forever. So that I can make it last a little. So they still got me, right? Even though I'm aware of it. Yeah.
I, for one, welcome our new robot overlords. So, man, what else have you been doing besides going on a quesarito quest?
Oh, nice. I like that. Well, I didn't have power for 2 whole days.
Yeah, man. How'd that storm go for you?
So the storm did not affect that bad, me personally. Driving home sucked. Rain started up at 3 o'clock. I got out of work at 4, and there were moments on the highway where I could not see at all because the wind was blowing the rain so fiercely into my windscreen that it was just like blind situations. It was like snow blindness, but with rain. I've never experienced anything like that before in my life. Like, it was nuts. And then I got home to be told, oh, we don't have power. And we still didn't have power the next day until I got home and power was restored, which was nice. That was awesome. But where I was really affected is, my place of work had no power Wednesday or Thursday, but I still had to go into work. It's like the resources were stretched so thin with them trying to figure out how they're going to handle COVID in the fall that they just had no idea how to deal with the fact that there was no power in any of the buildings.
Yeah, like just a small glimpse into the insanity of what went down further south from you, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
About, like, just hundreds of millions of people that were already dealing with things like incompetent governors and bullshit, communities that were just not obeying any of the fucking COVID rules. On top of that, a tropical storm blows through and just kind of just icing on the cake for everybody.
There are places in Connecticut that still have no power and no cell phone reception because of how it affected their entire grid.
That's insane.
That's nuts to me to think that there are still places that are affected by that storm a week later. And I mean, that's it, but it sucks because in the past, if something like that happens, they'll send out an email saying that only essential staff need to show up, which is like your maintenance workers and things like that. And I have been assured that while they feel I am an essential part of my office, if they say only essential workers, I should just stay home.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
instead, the nomenclature that they used in the email, which was sent out at 7:10, which is when I leave my house so that I can make it to work on time, to
Right.
contact my supervisor and ask for guidance. So,
Jeez, that is the most like that is the most like hands in the air we give up sentence you can get from an employer. Like, I don't know, contact the person responsible for you and find out whether or not they give a shit.
yep. And I mean, I went into work anyway. And strangely, thank goodness that I did, because somehow I had phones, and later find out that the IT department had a generator in their small little office delivering internet just for the phone lines, so that if people were there, they could handle phone calls. And
Right.
I handled at least 10 phone calls on that Wednesday from people asking if we had power in the building, to which I had to say no. And then their response would be, well, I heard from campus police that you do. And it's like, well, that's
Oh.
nice, because
You
I'm
sit there in the
here
dark.
and I don't have power. I have an emergency light.
Got candles and a fucking Ouija board here. Like, that's what I'm working
Like,
with out here.
I don't understand. That's something that I've never understood, is when someone calls to ask somebody who is in a position of some prominence, or like who should know an answer to the question, and then answers that question, but not in the way that they want it to be answered, and then they question that answer. I don't get that. It's like if I called Blockbuster and was like, "Are you open?" Like, that used to happen all the time when I was working at, like, on holidays. I always worked holidays when I was at Blockbuster. I'd answer the phone and they'd be like, "Are you open?" I said, "Yeah, we're open until 9 tonight." And they're like, "Are you sure you're open? Because it doesn't look like you're open. There's no cars in the parking lot." It's like, what? Are you in the parking lot? Like, the open sign is on. What?
Why would I lie to you? Like, just so that you get out of the car, try the door, and then I can just laugh at you and just be like, "Ha ha!
Right?
Better
Like,
go catch it." Slam.
also, like, you call, I pick up, and then, like, you ask me if I'm open, and I tell you yes. And it's like, does that matter that there are no cars there? Like, it's Christmas. Not a lot of people are getting movies today.
Oh man.
And it's something that I've never understood. And then, like, to deal with that in my current job situation, it was just like, I don't know what to do, right? Like, no, I'm sitting here in the dark, right? I'm thankful that the sun is out and I have a window in my office. Because the last time that I didn't have power 3 years ago, I was in a literal bunker and had only a candle to work by. That's not for funny. That's exactly what I had to do.
My dearest Martha, I fear I shall die in this bunker.
And what's worse from that is that time my supervisor specifically said, "I need you in there in case anybody wants to know if we're open and have power." Like, that was one where my supervisor told me, "You need to go in, even though there's no power in the building." So, like, that kind of paints a picture of how you're supposed to act in these situations. I don't know. So that's the thing that I dealt with. I didn't expect to talk about that on the show, but honestly, it explains why I didn't do much last week.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's been a weird week. I mean, if anything, like what just happened 10 minutes before we started is evidence that like things have just been kind of fucking weird. Like we talked about the stages, right? Like a while back, and like I feel like we've entered a stage of just like of just trying to figure our shit out, trying to figure out what the next step is, and things are kind of up in the air for everybody. And like, I don't know, man. There's just been all sorts of weird news this week.
Oh,
trying to figure out-
I wanted to let you know, Sejin, speaking of weird news, I have decided to sign into law the fact that you only have to wear pants every other Tuesday. Because apparently, even if you don't have the power to make something a law, you can do that now. Because last time I checked, the executive branch of our government can't really make treasury decisions on their own.
But apparently they can, man. Like we saw that that's not true this week. What are you doing?
Yeah, I
Don't
know.
fuck with me like that. Yeah, well, it makes about as much sense as threatening to put an executive order out to make sure that pre-existing conditions will be covered, even though that's already a law in this country. But that's the world that we live in, man. Like state the obvious, act like you're the king, and everybody will just kind of nod along because, like, man, there's I can't believe how like fucking wild this week got, because I started this week being upset about Spider-Man, and now here I am thinking that somebody tried to shoot the president.
Why were you upset about Spider-Man? Please tell me more. Tell me more.
So like this is just such a weird swing to take, like from where we were at to talking about this, but like people are pissed that Sony decided they wanted to make Spider-Man exclusive for Avengers on the PS5. And I just couldn't help but think the whole week of like, of course they did, right? And like, speaking of like companies realizing that they just don't even care to show you that they give a shit anymore. Why are we surprised that Sony, with the fight that they have had with Disney over the last 5 years to make sure that they still own a good chunk of Spider-Man, why are we so surprised that they went to bat against Microsoft to do the same? And the weird part is the same people that cheered Sony on for sticking it to Disney, and I'm putting quotes on that, sticking it to Disney by not letting them just completely railroad them with Spider-Man stuff, are the same people that are now complaining that Sony fucking decided to stick it to Microsoft by holding on to them. And it's just a really weird, like, I don't know what to believe anymore. I don't know what to expect from other people anymore. Because like I spent this whole week looking at different people arguing different points about like why exclusivity is bad, why consoles need to start to get along, how Xbox is really kind of leading the charge with the next generation because they're going to have the games anywhere model, and like all of this stuff that like I don't disagree with, but also like people then being legitimately surprised that there's shit still in video games that they don't like. And it's like, well, yeah, man.
So first of all, as much as I loved the pun, this was not a huge swing from where we were. Because it is, as you stated, corporations being corporations.
Yeah.
And I was not surprised to hear the news that Spider-Man was going to be a Sony exclusive, especially when you consider the fact that this Avengers game, right, that was delayed from, I think, May, right? Wasn't it supposed to come out in May of this year? To September is going to... Yeah.
So I'm just trying to think back because I thought it was supposed to be Christmas of this year. So, but anyway, but I definitely am not the one with the finger on the pulse of this sort of thing.
Yeah, I believe it was set for a March release or even an April release. I think it was the end of April it was supposed to release. And then they pushed it back, seemingly to open up the road for Final Fantasy VII Remake. Like, that's what it seemed like, because it is Square Enix who's publishing this game. And I'm like, well, that makes sense. That's just good business. You don't want to be competing against yourself, especially when these two games touch different markets. You want to make sure that if there's nothing out there in the water, people are going to gravitate to the thing that people are discussing and talking about.
Right. There's just enough crossover to make it worth not releasing them against one another.
Right. And again, it was even like, it was a month between, which Disney has sort of proven works for their model, that you're not really attacking your own profits by giving a month buffer between releases. That's cinema, though. That's very different from video games. So it made sense when I saw it get pushed from the end of April, beginning of May to September, when nothing was planned. Like, at the time, we didn't know anything that was coming out in the back half of 2020. And we didn't even know that 2020 was going to go the way that it went. So then, you hear that it's coming out, and in between them pushing it back to September, we hear all this talk about the next console generation, the PS5 and the Xbox X. So you look at those and you think, well, this game, which was already going to be on all of the consoles, and since a big push is that your games get to move forward with you, it's not so much backwards compatibility as it is evolution. It's very strange.
Yeah, for like evolution or like forward compatibility or like whatever nonsense like marketing buzzword you want to throw on it. Um, yeah, the idea being that hey, buy this now for the PS4 and it'll and included will be a PS5 copy of this, right? Is kind of the mentality that seems to be in the water at the moment.
Right. And I still am, I have no idea what that means.
Hmm.
It has that I'm one of those people that it has kept me away from purchasing any of these games that are going to do that, because I don't want to just be able to play my PS4 version on the PS5. I can wait for the PS5 to come out and get the PS5 version.
Right,
That
right.
doesn't
Because like,
bother
are
me.
what are you sacrificing by buying it early, right? Or are you getting like low quality like image? Like, is it going to affect what content is in it? Like, I mean, like, let's divorce ourselves from the Spider-Man conversation. By the time it comes out on the PS5, like last generation, what that led to were a lot of quote unquote Game of the Year editions, which misnomer, but the idea is like you can buy this version of the game that was available last console generation, but now when you buy it, you're getting all of the DLC included, all of the costume packs, all of the story, all of the right. And I'd be willing to wait for a PS5 version that had all of that stuff in it, but I think that that's exactly what they're trying to avoid, right? Is I think they know that a lot of people are thinking that that's might be what they do with something like say Avengers. So instead, what they're doing is they're going to say, "Hey, buy this now and you'll get a PS5 version right away." Because when it comes out on PS5, it ain't going to have any of that special shit in it. So like, you might as well just get it now and just play it. Is I think what they're saying. I I mean, like if they let me put it this way: if it goes the other way, if in 6 months you can get a PS5 version that has more shit in it, you're just going to look a fool for having purchased it early, right?
So the only thing that I think may happen, because they have released their semi roadmap, which is
Mm-hmm.
another red flag, which has kept me away from the Avengers game, and
Yeah.
revealed that while Hawkeye is not going to be one of the initial 6 playable characters, he is going to be the first DLC release for the game. And they have assured that all DLC characters will be free. You will never have to pay for a DLC character. Which, that information is what sparked the reveal that Spider-Man is going to be treated the same way exclusively on the PlayStation environment.
Well, so I wonder, is it timed exclusivity? So like, this is the question that's out there. Just to lay it out there for
Mm-hmm.
anybody that hasn't been like in on this. Like, there's questions because there's so much about this game that we don't know, right? One of the big things that I am most interested in is structure, because the whole idea is that you're supposed to be playing this new hero that you've created, and it's supposed to be a little bit further in the future. So there's certain heroes that are absent, there's certain heroes that are changed, or things like that. So how do these bigger heroes play into it? Because it's weird to me to say that Spider-Man is going to be an exclusive to the PlayStation, because like all I can think of is the Catwoman stuff in Arkham City, which we have talked about infamously on this show. Talked about how it kind of ruined what that game was for a lot of people, Devon included, because like if you didn't pay for the Catwoman stuff, like you were missing huge chunks of that game. And really, like having as somebody that is currently in his like millionth playthrough of Arkham City, like not having that stuff in it is just fucking weird to me. It would feel like you were legitimately missing pieces of the game. Is that what's going to happen with Spider-Man? Like, are there pieces of the game that are just not going to exist on the Xbox version? So like that's what I'm saying. Where like I understand the issue. I have no issue with. I mean, I have no problem with people raising the issue online. My problem is with the is with the attitude that they can't do this to us. It's like this is what this they've been doing this to you for years. Like we're and there have been times when you've been okay with it, and there have been times when we're not. When like Call of Duty maps have been like the back and forth conversation about this forever, right? The idea that like, well, they should make these free so that we can all play together as friends, but then like how do they encourage people to buy the latest version and all this other shit? Like this is not anything new to video games. I think the thing that's new to the conversation is the Disney effect. like the idea of it being Marvel and it being Spider-Man specifically, that there's a lot more eyes on this than there have ever been before. And if this means that video games change for the better over the next coming decade, because like people realize that they're not going to put up with this bullshit anymore, like I'm all for it. I just I guess it caught me off guard how many people were so caught off guard by this.
All right, so I can fill in some of the gaps for you about this game because
Yeah.
a beta did release this past weekend, for people who had pre-ordered the game on PS4. So as much as they're also trying to secure people buy a PS4 version and then are promised that it will be next gen compatible, they're also trying to make sure that they get the money now by offering things like a pre-order exclusive beta. And that beta has revealed that no, you do not create your own character. You are playing as one of 6 Avengers: Hulk, Black Widow, Iron Man, Captain America, Kamala Khan, and Thor. Those are the 6 Avengers that are available from the beginning of the game. Which it's strange that Hawkeye is not there in terms of Miss Marvel. But I get it, right? She's supposed to be the new character, quote, that you were talking about. And
Well, and again, part of it also has to do with narrative, right? Because there is something that happens in this game narratively that leads to like it being kind of a weird mix-up, right?
yeah, the Avengers sort of disbanded after an event that occurred on the Golden Gate Bridge. And now it is up to Miss Marvel Kamala Khan to rally them back together to defend the Earth once more. So, and the game has you customizing your own versions of these 6 characters, and I imagine any DLC characters that come out along the line. And customization is really the type of customization you see in any of these games. Costumes and like different colors that have been associated with them. So, like, there's a blonde Black Widow and there's a redhead Black Widow. As I'm sitting here thinking, man, I hope as Black Widow I can give her black hair, because that would how I would make my Black Widow distinct. Hulk can be gray or green. He cannot be red because it is specifically Bruce Banner, and he was never a red Hulk. That was General Thunderbolt Ross. Right. There's customization, but it's semi-limited to things that would make canonical sense. Nobody wants to play as Pink Darth Vader, essentially.
I mean, I will take you to task for that.
Well,
No,
that's what EA said. That was
right. Yeah, I know. Okay, so like that makes sense, right? So what are they locking away by not having characters like Hawkeye or Spider-Man available?
So the way that the DLC characters will be introduced is with their own. I mean, Hawkeye is the one that we have the most information about, and apparently he has a 6-mission narrative that is Hawkeye and can be played cooperatively with other characters, but it can also be played solo as just Hawkeye, doing 6 missions to tell a Hawkeye story before he meets up with the Avengers. So the Avengers are doing their thing, and then once you beat the campaign, for lack of a better term, and again, this is just what I've gleaned from right now, but it seems to be the way of this game. The campaign has you going like, in this level, you play as Kamala Khan or the Incredible Hulk, and the other one is either computer controlled or controlled by a co-op partner. And that's the online narrative of it. And then they have events where you can have up to 4 Avengers join, and you go out and you complete basically the raids from Destiny. It's very Memorpiga. And and that's where I'm like shying away from it. As much as I want to like customize my own Black Widow and get to do all of these like kit bash characters from things that I enjoy, I don't think that's going to happen. And I don't want it to just end up like Anthem, which promised heavy and did not deliver.
Yeah, I mean, like, and that'll be what it is. I mean, I very much actually really like that concept. So like gameplay wise, I'll be in, right? But yeah, so then you think about how the DLC has worked with something like, say, a Destiny, because we can only really go off of things that have come before it. We don't really have any idea what they're going to do with it. But like, if they're gonna do it with the Destiny stuff, like I remember distinctly a night playing with you where we came up against a dude that showed up on the board, and like you were taking shots at him and nothing was happening to him. Like health was going nowhere. There was nothing to do. And I was like, oh yeah, well that's because that's a thing for like a level like 57, and we don't have the DLC to get to that level, so we'll never be able to damage that dude. Like that's just not for us. Right. And like, are you going to come up against that? Are you going to see Spider-Man swing by and be like, Spider-Man? And then he's just going to ignore you? Like what kind of weird shit are we going to see? Right. And like, I don't know. Again, I'm very, very happy that attention is being brought to this thing that you and I have definitely talked about before. The idea of console exclusivity, timed exclusives, the on disc DLC being locked away and stuff like that, which the other Spider-Man news that got buried in all of this is that they've released more information about Miles Morales and the fact that like they're not calling it DLC anymore. They're saying it'll be its own standalone thing. However, you will buy Miles Morales for like $40 and you'll also just get a copy of Spider-Man. So you're buying the Miles Morales packaging, you'll get the Miles Morales story, but you'll also get Spider-Man included. How is that not just DLC just from a different angle? I don't know. Why not just make it a package? Like you spend this money to just add, and you'll be able to buy Miles Morales separate on its own digitally. But if you buy it physically, apparently you're just going to get Spider-Man, the first one, with it. So like there's all of this fucking weirdness where like they're trying so hard to avoid making it look like DLC, but everything that they planned on it clearly makes it look like it's just DLC for the first game. And people started to kind of smell that stink, and as they started to ask questions about that, suddenly this news dropped about Spider-Man in Avengers, and everybody stopped talking about that. So like attention shifted. So there's also some weirdness there that I'm tinfoil hatting there. But there's just been all sorts of bizarre news as far as the video game front goes this week.
Speaking of bizarre news, did you know that since 2008, the gangster Hammerhead has had a fully cybernetic cyborg body in the
What?
Spider-Man
Yeah.
universe?
No, I did not know that.
Okay, I just was curious because, like, I kind of have my finger on the pulse of Spider-Man. And speaking of Spider-Man DLC, one of the things I hope to accomplish over the summer of Devon was to finally finish all of the Spider-Man downloadable content for that game. And it's spoilers, I guess, for something that's a year old at this point. The second DLC ends with Hammerhead getting shot in the head and then being resurrected in the back of an ambulance. And then in the third one, it is just Hammerhead's head on a fully cybernetic body, but like gross proportions cybernetic body, not like he still looks like a man. And it really
Weird.
threw me for a fucking loop. Because one of the things I always liked about Hammerhead was that he was just a human who fought Spider-Man. As much as they say that he has Olympic athlete levels of stamina and strength, like, that still doesn't make you a superhero. You're
That's
just
still
a
achievable.
dude.
Well,
Yeah.
we don't need to have this conversation but the idea that the idea that it was an achievable goal for a human body to get to, right, without having to go through any type of like pseudoscience enhancements or like fantasy style like endowment of powers, right? Like you could theoretically become this human, theoretically. Like
Right,
huge wide berth on that one, but
because a comic book person with those things is still fantastical compared against other Olympic athletes in the real world, right?
Right.
Saying that someone has Olympic levels of stamina and strength, someone who, I don't know, bobsleds has a different type of strength and stamina than someone who competes in the decathlon.
I mean, you're better. You would have been better off if you picked like bowling, right, or like pool, like these things that have had Olympic like teams before. That like, yeah, we don't really necessarily equate with being like superpowers, for sure. It's yeah, man. The Spider-Man specifically got weird. Video games got kind of weird this week. Yeah, the East Coast got hit by a storm. The president ran away for a hot second. Like, what else do we have to cover today?
I mean, that's it. But no, I just wanted to share about Hammerhead that Mr. Negative gave him a fully cyborg body because that made me sad. And he looks like he's like the $6 million man. Like he just you wouldn't know to look at Hammerhead that he's all cyborg. So that was
Is
weird.
it was it like a retcon thing where like you didn't know this whole time he's
No,
been a
no, it was
cyborg?
specifically Hammerhead was like almost killed, and Mr. Negative came in and was like, I could put your consciousness into a perfect cybernetic replica of your body. And Hammerhead's like, deal.
Do it.
Deal. Do it.
Yeah,
Sign me the fuck up, Mr. Negative. Which, like, who's going to hang with a dude named Mr. Negative? That's like, how does Debbie Downer get invited to these parties? Makes no sense, Siege. It makes no sense. But yeah, here's another thing that happened. Those laws from the 1930s, that like stopped the studio system, they were recalled on the 8th of August.
Wait, jeez. Now, okay, hold on. Dial this back. So the thing that broke up the studio monopolies,
Yes.
the laws that you're talking about that essentially like stopped all of these companies from owning not just like every piece of the puzzle from making the movie to distributing the movie. Like they were put in place to stop that, and that just doesn't exist anymore.
That has apparently been overturned as of August 8th. Someone decided that those are no longer in effect, and it's very interesting because we're currently on the cusp of cinema changing dramatically, and
Having
by
to completely reinvent itself.
yeah. And if you look at this, where like studios will now be able to own theaters, and again be able to say, if you're booking our movie, you have to book it for 8 weeks. No more of this 2-week stuff. You show it for 8 weeks, or your theater doesn't get it. Like, all of these things that were like, no, that's terrible. That's terrible for the industry. That's terrible for the consumer. Those are just gone.
Well, also like with certain movies, like are not going to be seen in certain areas of the country, right? Because
Independent
like,
cinema will suffer
I
drastically.
mean, to say the least. But even like some bigger guys, like if they decide that they don't want to spread out in like say Texas, like big state, maybe they only want to have a couple of theaters in key areas. That means the rest of the state just doesn't get those movies, right? And like that's super weird. That is just weird to me from a cultural standpoint.
Yeah, it was an article I read this morning. I fact checked it. By all accounts, it seems like it's truly happening, but like just boilerplate stuff. I didn't get to look as deep into it, but as we're talking about just corporations kind of overreaching what they're allowed to do, it would feel strange not to bring up this monumental shift in the entertainment industry.
Well, yeah, and so you have to also kind of think about the ripple effect in the other direction too. Like, it's not just going to come down from like, hey, we're making the movies, and you have to come to us to see the movies. It's also like, hey, we're making the movies, and we're the only ones that are going to be seen in this area of the country. So if you want to make it big in New York, you got to go work for Universal now. If you want to go make it big in LA, though, then that's when you go work for Disney, right? Like there's this element of, as anybody in the entertainment industry that wants to do anything, they're now going to have to think about like the ways in which like they treat those industries, and it's going to do a lot of damage to the rights that people have fought for years. I mean, like Harvey Weinstein and the shit that went down with him and female actresses was a direct result of old style Hollywood tactics of like, if you want to sign on so that you can be in these types of movies, like, and it's exactly what made like it's the illegal side of what was already a gross situation, right? Like what he was doing was clearly fucked up. But on top of that, a lot of what he was doing was also highly illegal within the system that existed. And that is now gone. So like that, like you're taking a lot of power away from people like, not just actors and actresses, but also like writers and I mean, sound effect dudes and like just builders, scene builders and sound engineers and like all of these other people. Like this is going to have a profound effect on the way that movies get made. That, like, and that was already going to happen because of what's going on in this country. This is just like this is nuts. This
I
is like a
thought it
storm
was
hitting in the
fake.
middle of
I
COVID.
thought it was fake because it's like one of those things that you learn about when you're taking like film courses in college about the outdated studio system and what eventually caused it to grind to a halt. And how it is. So then like reading it, I'm like, oh, this has got to be no. This is all appearing to be true, and that is terrifying. That legitimately terrifies me. And I don't know. I don't know where it goes from there. It's just something I had to share. It is something that I will look into and I will have more information for next week. But with the path that this took, it just seems strange not to share it, at least even in this infancy of the idea. And it also makes so much sense when we consider that streaming is going to become a viable part of distribution for new films. You have things like Bill and Ted Face the Music. That is
Charlie Kaufman's new movie.
I don't know about that
is
one.
a Netflix exclusive. I've been thinking about ending things and I mean, you're talking about a dude that like it's just another example of like Oscar bait that is just going straight to Netflix as opposed to coming out in any type of theatrical release.
Right. I was focusing more on things like Bill and Ted Face the Music was going to release in theaters on the 29th of August and then was going to hit streaming on the 1st of September. It was something like crazy like that. And then they've now pushed it up to a universal release date of August 28th. And that just seems so strange when you think about that in terms of that. You look at Mulan, which I blame us. I'm always quick to take the blame for things that may not be our fault, but honestly, Disney is doing what I said they might do on this podcast. And if you are a subscriber to Disney Plus, for $30 additional, you can see Mulan at home.
Yeah.
And I talked about like, how far are we from that becoming a reality? How far are we from them realizing?
That's how far away we are. Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, and what's even crazier about that is like the number that you put out. We talked about the idea that like when movies first started dropping like this, it was $20 to get them at home, and like that's a fucking steal, even if it's only 2 people that watch. Right. Like that's nothing. And then like, but they heard that. They heard people saying like this is great. That they were like, well, maybe we can do 30, right? And like, what's the next move, right?
Yeah, it's only going to go higher. But eventually what they're going to do is they're going to keep testing the water, and when they start to see diminishing returns, they'll pull back. And the really gross thing is, say humanity as a whole decides, I'm willing to pay $40 to watch this movie at home, right?
Right.
4 people, it'd be $10 a ticket at the theater. Like, this is what I'm willing to pay to watch this movie at home, which is essentially what Mulan is, because you have to have the $10 Disney Plus subscription and then pay the additional $30 on top of that.
Right.
So that's sort of what they're saying. Let's say they raise it to $50 and they see a dramatic drop in their profits. They won't go back to 40. They will go to 45. And those people who like railed against the machine because, oh my God, you're going to charge me $50 to watch a new movie at home, are going to view that as a win. And they're going to get back into the pocket of these corporations that are basically treating us like the guinea pigs to determine how they're going to take advantage of us going forward. This feels like the most conspiracy Mad Money episode of the Say Report we have ever put together.
Well, because we've made the mistake of looking forward, Dev. We talked last week about how we were going to start focusing on the now, and before that we were so focused on what had happened, and we kept talking about how we had to look forward, and we've looked forward and we realized it's fucking scary, Devon.
Amen to that, Sejan. It's terrifying. And I don't see an end anywhere in sight. The Rockettes are not performing at all this year. The Rockettes have been canceled. And that really you know, indicated something to me about where we are with
Yeah,
this
right.
whole thing. And now, like, you and I, we're both theatrically trained people, right? We know
Hmm.
that if you're going to perform something in November, December, you start rehearsing in, say, September. So it's not crazy that they've made that decision now, but it also speaks to the fact that they're like, I don't think there's going to be a market or the ability to perform this then. Otherwise,
Yeah,
they would
yeah.
fight to figure out a way to get the permissions to have these people, like, in a bubble rehearsing the Rockette show.
Right. And well, and like we talked about with Mulan, like we said, once they kind of realize, well, this is never going to be able to come out in a theater and make money, that's when they'll make the decision to put it on. And then lo and behold, like, hey, November, we're just going to put it out there because that just shows that Disney's pretty sure that that means that there isn't going to be a viable time to put it into a theater and expect people to go anytime in the foreseeable future. Like that was the exact realization that they had to have, that come to Jesus moment where they were like, all right, Mulan's got to be the one that we put out because because it's just not going to make it into a theater space, into a cinema space. And like the same with the thing like with the Rockettes. The difference being with the Rockettes is like there isn't like that depends on a live audience. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm. Oh, I do. I've
yeah,
seen it. I've
there's
seen the Rockettes the one time that is required if you're within 2 hours of New York.
mhm. Yeah, man, it's crazy. I mean, it's it we are still all as a country trying to figure out what the hell to do, and we're starting to realize that there are other things that we need to like focus on. And like for a while people were using that kind of language as like an excuse to forget about COVID, and that's not at all what I'm trying to do, so I want to make sure that that's clear. Like, I'm not saying we have to move on from caring about COVID. We've only just begun. But the idea is that we have to be adults and multitask, right? We have to be concerned about what's going to be going on with this disease and also figure out how we like come out the other side of this. I honestly, if you're really asking me, one of the big things we have to do is focus on, stopping the disease, but that's a whole other fucking episode.
New Zealand is 100 days corona free.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So
Like,
imagine if those kinds of prevention efforts had been put in place in other places in this world and what that would mean for those places that could have done things like that and been world leaders again. Um, but yeah. So like there are we are in the throes of like of change and trying to figure out what we will be once the change is complete. And one of the shitty things about it is that like you can't do that. You can't force the change in a certain direction. And there's a lot of people out there that are going to start trying to do that with things like shitty marketing tactics and destroying inalienable rights for workers in this country and things like that. And we have to make sure that things like that aren't allowed to happen in the middle of like figuring our shit out about COVID. We have to make sure that they don't destroy an industry that, I mean, surprise, surprise, destroy an industry that led the charge for unions in this country. That we suddenly stripped away all of the protections that allowed those unions to be created, right? Like what does SAG look like in this world? If the studio system's allowed to come back in full force, like SAG is going to get demolished.
I mean, what all you need to do is look at something like the NFL, because these studios are going to run like these franchises, and you're going to know the team of like the Universal Monsters and the Paramount Players and the Disney Mighty Ducks, because why would they not use that name, right? Like, they already own it.
Right.
Like, take that, Anaheim's hockey team, get a new name. But like that's what it's going to start resembling, is
right. But then you don't get the chance to have like a director like Shane Black come in and try his hand with Iron Man 3, which is like a great fun thing to see, right? Because he probably would be he would be stuck in a certain mold that he would not be able to stretch like his arm, his there's things that you can point to over the last few years, like does Spider-Man, how does that fight that bear out, the whole Spider-Man Sony Disney thing? Like, this could have huge bearings on that going forward too. Oh man,
I mean, a situation like that, you just stonewall, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just like,
Mm-hmm.
oh well, but he's on our team, so either you find a new Spider-Man or we just wait you out. and it's scary. It is very scary, and we will have more information on it next week. But it was something that just in the wake of everything that we discussed, I felt needed to be shared briefly. I need to take a shower. I feel filthy right now after just waiting around in this for all of this episode. Even single parents. Like, I'm sad about single parents, but also, as I described it to you, I get why I'm the only person who, like, I've ever heard talk about single parents. I get it now. Is there anything else that you would like to add to this episode before we send it out to the internet for, judgment?
No, I mean, at this point where we stand in this weird world, we still don't know quite what happened in Washington, D.C. today. So just keep your ear to the ground about that, because God knows if it's anything big, that's going to have some big repercussions in the world. But stay safe, everybody. Like, stay healthy. Things are on fire. Like, I love y'all.
You should listen to that song "People Like Us" by Kelly Clarkson. I just rewatched that episode of Doom Patrol with Danny the Street and Larry Traynor singing that song. And honestly, the world's on fire, but we're all in this together. And we just need to remember that and keep fighting. I know it's hard to stay high when you're living on the bottom, but we can do it. That should become the new anthem of these COVID times, is Kelly Clarkson's "People Like Us," but specifically the version that Matt Bomer is singing on. Because Matt Bomer, I would have a topless poster of him in my room, completely heterosexually. He's just a good-looking man, and he's the man who should
above
guide
my
us
bed
forward.
in a heartbeat.
Also, rapid fire, because if I don't talk about them now, I'll literally never talk about them. I watched Greyhound as my first thing on Apple TV Plus.
Nice.
Is enjoyable. Is a Tom Hanks film. The problem that I'd found is the rhythm of a movie in a theater is super soothing at home. Like, that movie is tense and you are on the edge of your seat the whole time, but it also made me very sleepy. And it's 91 minutes long, and I can't believe that, like, as connected to it as I was, in like a snap of a finger, I could have been asleep. And that is because I am at home watching it.
Yep.
But if you have Apple TV Plus, check it out. It's worth watching. But I understand why Tom Hanks is like, watching a movie at home is different. If you have Amazon Prime, watch Hoosiers. Hoosiers is a fantastic fucking movie that I hadn't watched in about 15 years. I watched it again yesterday. It's inspiring. It's very good. Watch Hoosiers if you have seen it or haven't.
It's quintessential sports movie, man. Yeah.
Like, yeah, there's a scene in Hoosiers, semi-spoilers for Hoosiers, where they're in like a huge arena, and he's like, let's measure. Oh, look at that. It's still 15 feet from the bottom of the rim, the bottom of the backboard to the top of the key. And look at that. From the rim to the floor, it's still 10 feet. Those are the same measurements at home. That was so ingrained in my head from the first time I saw Hoosiers at least 15 years ago that when it was coming up, I thought it was from a different movie. Like, because it's not attached to Hoosiers, it's just ephemera in the air. It is the magic and language of celluloid. And my God, just watch Hoosiers. It made me feel so good yesterday. So if you're looking for a pick-me-up, Hoosiers, it's out there. And the last thing is, this is a promise for next week. I'm going to talk about Axiom Verge finally. 5 years later.
All right.
I just entered the final section before we started recording, like half an hour before we started recording, and I got thoughts already. So,
is it available on like PlayStation Now or anything like that?
I don't know if it's available on PlayStation Now. What finally got me to pull the trigger is that it was on sale for $10.
Okay, I'm gonna take a look around.
Like,
yeah, because if it's on PlayStation Now, I'll try and give a little bit of a play so that I'm not completely coming from nothing with it. Because I'm excited. I'm excited we get to talk about it.
I actually wouldn't be surprised if it's on PlayStation Now, because it was one of those ones that like talked about its console exclusivity when it first came out to consoles. Now it's available everywhere, but that was one that they like trumpeted out that we're going to be on PlayStation. And it's, you know, continuing the trend. Axiom Verge 2, first available on Nintendo Switch. Because they don't care. They'll take the money from wherever. Because that's capitalism. But I think that's everything that I have to say. Sejan said he's got his piece. But if you want to be part of the Axiom Verge thing, find it. I'm sure it's out there somewhere. And if you want to yell at Sejan about any of the things that he said, or, you know, recommend a new tinfoil for his hat, he can be found on Twitter at Siege versus the World.
Yeah, it is starting to get a few holes in it. I've been wearing it so much lately. Yeah, and if you want to hit Devon up and talk to him about how you very much enjoyed Single Parents, then you can catch him at Devon D. Decker.
I'd love to. Come, tell me all about Single Parents. We will commiserate over its cancellation together. Until next time, let's throw it over to our very own Miggy. Will bring us home.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devon Decker and Stephen Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.